Cheers and welcome my friends, I'm Horath and we are playing BattleTech, still the pre-release version. Now what I want to do for this episode, we're just done with the first two missions and the game is opening up. Before we really jump into the missions, I kind of want to go through the ship, talk with everyone, like get to know them a little bit, since we just had we're just thrown into the situation, then it's at 3 years later and we were on the ground with these guys. And now, I just want to talk with the crew and all that. We probably won't have a mission in this one. Actually, I will specifically not do that. So if you just want to see the mission gameplay, you can just skip on ahead to the next episode, which I will be recording right after this. I finally got a whole afternoon set to recording BattleTech. I'm super looking forward to this, but I also kind of want to get to know my crew and all that kind of stuff since I am their commander. I think that is kind of my duty. One of the things that I've done is I've changed our heraldry. So now I think we kind of have to take the Kraken. We also call it the Draconians now. And because of that, I've gone for this color scheme with the teal, the light teal, the dark teal, and then some black accents over here. And that is really cool. I'm so happy that I can actually change the colors. That's beautiful. Sadly, I cannot change the name of my MechWarriors. That is just, at least I haven't found the option. Okay, that's me. I could name him in the beginning. But let's say I want to rename Behemoth. It's not a thing. So I'm sorry about that, but I've gone ahead and I've actually named our mechs after patrons. So the Blackjack is now the Dark Guyver. We have the Wyatt, that is the Vindicator. We have the Rainbow Reaper, that's the Shadowhawk. And we have the Hunter. Alright, Locust I'm not going to rename because I do not plan on using the Locust. It's just made out of paper. I don't want to risk any of my pilots by using a 20-ton mech. Might be a nice idea, but honestly, no. Just no. Maybe want to change the pattern over here. Let's go maybe to pattern 6. I kind of like that one. Actually, no, why are you changing the... Okay, I think pattern 1 looks kind of decent. This one has pattern 1. I like it. What do you have pattern 4? Oh, that looks fun. I really like that I can change the color of these guys and that we have our heraldry in the back. So let's go through this. We have a couple of people that we want to talk to. Since we're already in the mech bay, we just might talk with Yang over here, who I think has a lot to say. Hey boss, welcome to the mech bay. My own little piece of heaven right here on the ship. Something I can help you with? I want an assessment on the Leopard. How much trouble are we in? Dunno. I mean, we're doing okay for the moment, but give it a few months, maybe a year. You know how it goes. Eventually everything falls apart. Maybe our drive system will give out. Maybe some debris will perforate the hull. Who knows? But on that day, we're gonna need to be able to cover our repair costs. And if we can't, well, that'll be that. I've got a few questions about the mech bay. Yeah, then hit me with them. I'll do what I can to answer. I mean, I don't want to wax poetic or nothing, but the mech bay is where the magic happens, boss. It's the beating heart of a mercenary outfit. Anything I should know about the mech bay themselves? Beyond each cubicle holding one mech, not much. It's all about capacity. The more mech bays we have, the more mechs we can keep battle ready. And the more mechs we have battle ready, the more flexibility you have in your deployment options. Let's say we had 2 Blackjacks, for example. A decent medium mech for sure. I know your family gave you yours. One could be loaded out with lots of energy weapons for use in colder environments where they can bleed heat quickly. The other identical Blackjack could be loaded out with ballistic weapons that require ammo but generate much less heat. Smart for deploying in warmer climates or in vacuum where heat dissipation is slower. Why use mech storage? A few reasons. First, we have limited capacity in the mech bay, so we need to store the overstock for eventual sale or for use in the future. Second, we don't pay upkeep costs on mech in storage. That's a business thing though, not my department. Third, and this is important, whenever we pick up partial mech salvage from the battlefield, I put it in storage for you. If we gather or buy enough partial mech salvage to complete a BattleMech chassis, my team will assemble it right away. You let me know if you want to keep it in storage or have it ready for combat. BattleMechs are expensive as hell, so assembling one out of salvage is our best bet for expanding our roster. What happens when a mech goes into or gets ready from storage? When you send a mech chassis into the storage, our mech techs dismount all its weapons and equipment and place them in your inventory for use on other chassis. The chassis can stay in storage indefinitely. And don't worry about storage capacity, boss. I'll make it fit, don't you worry. I really like him, he's like, he's like Scotty in Star Trek. I'll make it happen. You got 2 hours. I'll do it in 1. Now, getting a stored battle mech ready for a combat drop is a different animal. My techs will need a couple of days to bring an empty chassis up from storage. Once the chassis is back in the mech bay, you'll need to select its loadout from our equipment inventory so we can start a refit. The time and cost of a refit is dependent on the type and amount of equipment you choose. Okay, got that. Sure thing, be my guest. Mech Components. I've been wondering about the components you can put on our mechs. One of my favorite topics. In the mech bay, you can browse all the equipment we have available in inventory. There are 2 types of components I can install on a BattleMech. Weapons and equipment. Sorry, I hit my pop filter. Apologize. Tell me about Ballistic Weapons. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Like, we get to know... and it's a very important part of the game, like loading out these mechs and all. So, Ballistic Weapons, such as the autocannon pack, a good punch, generate little heat and can destabilize an enemy if they hit it enough. But ballistic weapons are, you know, ballistic, so they require ammo. And ammo can explode if it takes a hit in combat, which is bad news all around. That's also one of the reasons why you really should not store ammo in your center core. Because if it gets hit, it can actually blow up before they chew through the things, and that would be really bad. Ballistic weapons are also pretty heavy and can take up a lot of space on a mech. Strengths and weaknesses, boss. Strengths and weaknesses. So energy weapons. Energy weapons don't use any ammo, but they generate a lot of heat. You may need to invest in additional heat sinks to keep your mech cool if you choose an energy-heavy loadout. Since the intense beams of coherent light, energy weapons are great for cutting things up, but they aren't much good at destabilizing an enemy. The particle projector cannon is the one big exception to that rule. In addition to the massive damage it can inflict, a hit from a PPC can destabilize an enemy, maybe even slow it down a bit. The PPC generates a metric shit ton of heat, but it's worth it, boss. And if that wasn't enough, it has a mild electromagnetic punch that screws with the enemy's targeting systems. Okay, tell me about the missile weapons. Missile weapons are my favorites. Yeah, they require ammo and generate moderate heat, but the pounding they can deliver can destabilize an enemy faster than most other weapons. And having multiple projectiles in a shot means you're almost always guaranteed at least a single hit. Long-range missiles are also capable of indirect fire. If one of your units has line of sight on an enemy, it can act as a spotter for LRM-equipped units that don't. With a spotter, a mech equipped with LRMs can stay behind cover and arc its missiles to hit the enemy. A spotter can increase your launcher's effective range too. Granted, the enemy can do the same to you, but that's someone else's problem. So that is what I think is called like a gunboat, fitting one mech out with only long-range missiles and just having a scouter in front and never putting the gunboat even in the firing range. Could be fun. I don't want to sell short-range missiles short though. They can generate incredible impact and they do great damage, but you've got to be within knife fight range to use them. Tell me about support weapons. Support weapons are lighter than the others. Small lasers, machine guns, that kind of thing. I programmed our targeting computers to automatically fire them after melee attack if they're activated. So these are mainly here to just improve our melee damage. Don't know that we want any of our current mechs built out for that, but we could. I've seen commanders order refits that remove most conventional weapons to double down on support weapons. With the right melee enhancing components, they can field monsters capable of point blank devastation. Tell me about the other types of equipment we can refit on a mech. It's a big list, boss. I suggest you check the store in every system we travel to. You never know what you'll find. I can install stronger cockpits to reduce the injuries of our MechWarriors. Will take. Armor actuators that increase melee damage, range finders that increase the range at which enemies can visually acquire it, all sorts of stuff. All take up critical slots on a battle mech. Some add weight too. Keep your eyes open for them and give them a good chance, a good once over before you buy one, so you know what you're getting into. Now, putting powerful weapons and equipment on your mechs is fine and all, but remember the trade-off is always armor. You know how they say the best defense is a strong offense? They aren't on the battlefield. Don't skimp on the armor, boss, or all that expensive equipment will get reduced to junk with the enemy's first salvo. Okay, point taken. I heard that some manufacturers have developed better versions of some weapons. True that. Different manufacturers tweak their weapons to deliver more damage, have higher accuracy, to stabilize the enemy, bunch of stuff. The trick is finding them. They're rare out there in the periphery, so when I see one in a store or a salvage pile, I always mark it with a plus for you, so you can identify it easily. I appreciate that. And some equipment is rarer than others. The more plus symbols I mark them with, the rarer and more useful they are. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you're gonna find. Alright then, let me ask you something else. How do I repair mech damage after a battle? Also pretty important. When you return from a mission, stop by the mech bay here to tell me which mechs you want to have repaired. I'm not gonna assume anything. You run this outfit, so you tell me what to spend time and money on. Okay, that's not completely true. If I see armor missing from a battle mech, I'm gonna repair it automatically. Standard operating procedure, and we have so much scrap armor lying around that you should consider armor repairs to be free. Now, if you tell me to repair a mech containing destroyed equipment, the text will strip that off automatically too. I'll list the equipment they strip, but you're gonna want to replace it with something. Anyway, like I was saying, armor repairs are free. Internal structure, on the other hand, takes time and C-bills to fix. If a mech structure is damaged or missing, I'll flag it for you in orange. Just order the repair, confirm the time and cost, and I'll get it into our work queue. What if I want to change a mech's loadout? Can I refit it with new weapons and equipment? Oh, now you're talking, boss. You bet you can refit a mech. You can repair it at the same time too. Just select the battle mech and order the refit. That'll bring it to the mech lab. What can I do in the mech lab? The mech lab is where you let me know what sorts of modifications you want me to make to our stable of battle mechs. I can install new weapons and equipment, add or remove armor location by location, pretty much anything you want. All it takes is time and money. We've got plenty of both, right? Sure, I mean, we have plenty of money. For another 3 months. Are there limits on how I can refit a mech? It's hardware, Horath. Of course there are limits. Your biggest constraints are the chassis' weight and its hardpoints. I can't make a mech as heavy as I want. Negative. A mech's chassis can support only so much tonnage in weapons, armor and equipment, so you need to keep its overall weight in mind when designing a BattleMechs loadout. If your design is over a chassis weight rating, we can't accept the work order. Now there are ways of making things fit, of course. Trade-offs can be made, but you've got to be careful. We have the ability to remove armor from individual locations in order to squeeze more bigger weapons on, but less armor is less armor. You don't want to wind up with something that'll blow over in a strong breeze. Trust me on that, I've seen it happen often enough to know. What's a hardpoint again? Each location of BattleMech contains one or more weapon mounts called hardpoints. Hardpoints are only designed for one specific weapon type, ballistic, energy, missile, and support. However, most mechs contain locations with more than one hardpoint, so you have some flexibility in what you mount there. From what I understand, this is like a change that Harebrained Schemes made to like the rule set of BattleTech. I don't think that was in the tabletop from what I gather from comments of people. So that's kind of interesting, because it keeps the flavor of the mechs. I kind of like that. Let's go back for a minute. There's something else I need to ask. Sure, be my guest. How do I know what a mech is good at in the first place? Great question. There are a lot of different battle mechs out there, and it's hard to know what they were built to do best just by looking at them. I mean, I can, of course, but I'm me. You, on the other hand, are gonna need some help. Thankfully, I'm a helpful guy. If you check your technical readouts in the mech lab, you'll find that I've included some thoughts about each mech's off-the-rack purpose or stock role. They're only opinions, mind you, but you might find them useful. I've also provided access to an itemized list of the equipment that a mech normally carries when you buy it as stock. Think of it as a mech's basic recipe. What happens after I order a refit? Once you confirm your work order, it'll be placed in a queue with other repairs and refits on your timeline. Remember, a mech will be unavailable for combat until its work order is complete, so plan your refits carefully. I suggest queuing them up before we head to the next system to use our travel time efficiently. If you want to change a mech's placement in the work queue, select Manage Tasks under the timeline to reprioritize or cancel work orders. That's going to be pretty important for us, like selecting which mech we want to have in battle as soon as possible, so yeah. How long do repairs and refits normally take? Depends on the mech bay conditions you're working in. A good mech bay with advanced scaffolding and equipment is faster than the one you'll find on a standard Leopard. I display our mech's efficiency in mech tech points on your travel display under the finances and crew morale readouts. The higher the rating, the faster the repairs. Got it. Let me talk about something else. Heat stability modifiers. We're almost through with the tutorials. You seem to know your way around the battlefield, Yang. Any advice? Sure. The better you lead in combat, the less work I have to do when it's over. Let's talk about heat. Yeah, let's talk about it. I can't emphasize this enough. Watch your heat. Your MechWarriors are sitting on walking fusion reactors out there. Using jump jets and firing weapons generates heat. Sometimes lots of it. If one of your mechs gets too hot, you could do damage to its internal structure, or worse, shut the engine down in the middle of combat, leaving it a sitting duck. How can I affect heat in combat? Each weapon system on a BattleMech can be toggled on or off each time it takes action. Most MechWarriors keep their heat low by toggling off weapons with lower chances to hit. But sometimes you have a solid chance to hit with everything in your arsenal. That's when you gotta experiment by toggling a few off to make sure you stay below the red line. And watch the terrain. Moving your mechs into water or over ice helps them cool down too. How can I make a mech more heat efficient? Note your mech's heat rating in the mech lab and install more heat sinks on it if you find that it runs hot in combat. Heat sinks vent plasma from the mech's engine and do a lot to dissipate the buildup from jump jets and weapon fire. Heat sinks are your friend. You can always change the weapons on the mech to use more heat-friendly parts, but obviously that'll change how you use that mech in combat. Trade-offs, boss. It's all about the trade-offs. Okay, so let's ask about something else. What about the stability? Yeah, stability is a smart thing for a commander to understand, boss. Getting pummeled by weapon fire is a good way for a mech to become destabilized. Walking over rough terrain doesn't help much either. Destabilized mechs can't sprint in combat and they're vulnerable to falling if hit hard enough while in that state. Tell me about how to make my BattleMechs less vulnerable to weapon fire. There's a few ways I can think of: evasion, cover, and bracing. Okay, let's hear about evasion. A short-term version is this: the farther a unit goes, the more evasive it becomes. Shooting a moving target is hard, and shooting a faster target is harder. When you order mech to move in combat, note the number of angled chevrons your command software assigns it. The more chevrons that are displayed, the harder it'll be to hit. Same for the enemy. Yeah, we already got that one. Sensor locking an enemy removes 2 of its evasion chevrons and makes it easier to hit. Same goes for your unit, so be careful. Cover. BattleMechs are kind of big, aren't they? Yep, they're big and scary and dangerous, and they're harder to hit standing in forests and other terrain features. Standing behind buildings or hills is good too. If the enemy can't see you, they're gonna have a hard time hitting you. It's all about line of sight. Think about it. Think about it all the time. Your enemy is, I guarantee it. If they can see you, a little red eyeball will appear above them in your command software. Massive taught me to brace my mech, but that does make it harder to hit. Nope, bracing your mech won't make it harder to hit, but it should buffer some of the damage you'll take by half or so. So think about it, eh? Let's go back for a minute. Like, he's all about avoiding the damage. Let me ask you something else. I think, okay, so that's enough for now. We're through with the tutorial. Let's go to the personal questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How do you wind up with this crew? That's a long story, boss. Shortest version I can give you. I signed on after I served my term in the Third Succession War, fighting for the Capellan Confederation. Capellan Confederation is one of the 5 successor states of the Star League, located rimward of Terra, ruled by House Liao. The Confederation is the smallest and newest of the successor states, and often the loser in conflicts against the other powers of the Inner Sphere. It is an authoritarian police state with philosophical origins in a text known as the Corvin Doctrine, which argues for total subservience of the individual to the state. Citizens of the Confederation must earn their position and the benefits of citizenship through service to their community. The current ruler of the Confederation is Chancellor Maximilian Liao, a shrewd planner and master manipulator. Okay, so they're kind of the underdogs from the Inner Sphere powers. Interesting. Where are you from originally? Bryant in the Confederation. You may have heard of our claim to fame, the Crowley Lizard Cow. No? Well, trust me, they're delicious. An edible reptile indigenous to the planet Bryant. The meat of the Crowley Lizard Cow is considered a delicacy, and it is one of Bryant's few planetary exports. Okay. Nice. A lizard cow. Anyway, as the story goes, Bryant was a really nice place once. Tourist spot, big with hikers and fishing enthusiasts. Pale blue skies, emerald green seas, and a booming agricultural business. You know, the works. I never knew it that way though. Stefan Amaris got to it a couple centuries before I was born, and well, that was that. So, born 2717, died 2779. As president of the Rimworld's Republic, Stefan Amaris expanded the Republican army and placed Republican agents in key positions throughout the Star League. He fostered a close relationship with Richard Cameron, with the First Lord, while the First Lord was in his minority. When Cameron came of age, Amaris guided him towards policies that would move Alexander Kerensky's SLDF, Star League Defense Force, away from Terra and place Republican forces there instead. With these preparations in place, Stefan Amaris murdered Richard Cameron on December the 27th, 2766 declared himself First Lord, beginning the Amaris Civil War. Kerensky raised the Rimworld's Republic and returned to Terra to defeat Amaris' forces and capture him. Stefan Amaris was executed by firing squad in 2779. His remains were donated to the medical school of the University of New Samarkand. Nice. So that's like the final insult. Yeah, we're gonna donate your remains. Okay. As the story goes, Bryant used to have these enormous orbital mirrors, storm inhibitors, they call them. The Star League put them in place. When Amaris took the system in his civil war, he had his troops use them for target practice. Without those mirrors, Bryant reverted to its natural state, a miserable little ball of wind-blown dirt actively hostile to human life. Is there anything new in this? Interstellar Council, formed from the Terran hegemony, the 5 great houses of the inner sphere, and the territorial states of the periphery. Stability, prosperity of the Star League led to the flourishing of civilization and technology. So we have like the Pax Romana, we have like the Pax of the Star League. That leads to something prospering, because they are all unified under a central power. And then Civil War, yeah. So Bryant went down the drain. By the time I came along, the only places where people could live in relative safety were the planet's poles. Of course, you can't fit a planet's entire population into a handful of cities at its poles. There isn't enough space, no matter how far down you dig or how tall you build. A lot of people, mostly the poor, died in the early days. There's still a lot of overcrowding in Bryant cities, even now. That's my childhood home in a nutshell. Way too many people jammed into a tiny, claustrophobic space with nowhere to go but off-planet. I cleared out of there as fast as I could and never looked back. Gotta admit though, I do miss the taste of lizard cow. Man, now I kinda wanna taste lizard cow. Come on. Well, it's only fictional. Damn it. I would never taste lizard cow. That is sad. Tell me about your time in the military. Who'd you serve with? The 2nd St. Ives Lancers, 1st Battalion under Major Ling. A well-connected and well-financed regiment, the Lancers operated along the Capellan Confederation's rimward quarter, fending off pirates and conducting raids into the Free Worlds League. In 3025, which is the year that this game is set in, its 3 battalions are allocated to the defense of St. Ives, Maladar, and St. Loris. We saw more action than most. The arm is a souvenir of my time in the service. I lost the original back in 3010 on St. Loris. So he's already been 15 years without that arm. That must be tough. St. Loris is an important agricultural center in the Capellan Confederation. In 3010, a notable battle took place between the 2nd St. Ives Lancers and 2 regiments from the elite Sitai Hussars of the Federated Sons. Much of the planet's vital wheat crop was destroyed. I wonder if, like, these Hussars are actual cavalry, or if that is like cavalry but they're using mechs. You know, when we first arrived at St. Loris, I loved the place. It's an agricultural world, sort of a breadbasket for the neighboring systems. Green fields, rolling hills, you get the picture. We just walked out of hell on Kittery. Previously under Capellan control in 3005, this inhospitable jungle world was conquered by the Federated Sons. A resistance movement kept the world a war zone for many years. In 3020, House Liao returned and waged war for a more permanent liberation. So far it has succeeded only in creating lasting enmity between the defending First Kittery borderers and the invading forces of the St. Ives armored cavalry. Why would they fight over an inhospitable jungle world? That doesn't sound... I mean, there must be something there that they want, right? Oh well. The fat rats drove us out in 05 with our tails behind our legs, so it looked like paradise to us. A person living in or whose national origin is the Federated Sons, considered derogatory. Oh, you don't say. I remember kicking back in the mech bay, my feet propped up on an engine block, sipping on a snifter of ambergris vermouth. Not a bad way to spend a sunny afternoon. Ambergris vermouth is red and usually found in tiny bottles in port shops. Getting larger bottles takes connections. Getting a crate of it, well... Alright then. Anyway, turned out the Federated Sons weren't done with us yet. We were barely a month into our deployment when they sent the Seedy Hussars to burn us out. I'm sure that there were sound strategic reasons for House Davin to warn St. Loris, but it sure felt personal to me. Yeah, he just came out of the war zone fighting against these guys, and then he gets attacked by them again and gets his arm blown off. So, Federated Sons. One of the 5 successor states of the Star League located rimward and spinward of Terra, ruled by House Davian, the Confederation is the most powerful of the 5, and the people of the Federation pride themselves on their self-proclaimed role as defenders of justice and liberty. The Federation is quite capable of ruthless, decisive action though, and its idealism readily gives way to pragmatism when called for. The current ruler of the Federation, Prince Hans Davian, is an experienced and unconventional military commander. The Federation's alliance with the Lyran Commonwealth effectively ended the Third Succession War. So these guys are allied with House Steiner, I think. Alright. So, and the Cide Hussars, created by the Federated Sons in an effort to replicate a light horse-style regiment of the Star League era. Really, light horse. So they're actually using horses. The combination of mechs and mounted infantry was ideal for conducting swift raids. The Hussars also encouraged personnel to dine together regardless of rank or branch of service, prompting a high re-enlistment rate. Okay, I mean, they have their egalitarian ideals, but a combination of mechs and mounted infantry. They can't really be using horses. It must be vehicles or something. Like, just think about the logistics of moving horses from planet to planet, getting them food, putting them somewhere. That's just, no, that's insanity. House Davian. By Freedom's Sword. From their capital world of New Avalon, the Davian family led the Federated Sons to become one of the largest and most militarily powerful states in the sphere. Federated Sons motto by Freedom's Sword illustrates their self-image as a nation, the champion of freedom, democracy and human rights, although the reality is not so clear-cut. In addition to being a military power, the Federated Sons is home to the New Avalon Institute of Science, the premier research and development center of the 31st century. Yeah, they sound a bit like the US, in a way. Long story short, one of their scouts managed to slip through our perimeter and hit my mech bay. I was tinkering around in a Centurion's custom-made rumble seat at the time. Being surrounded by all that armor is the only reason I made it out alive. Still, I didn't make it out unscathed. I lost 2 of my favorite assistants and my own right arm. And I got this ugly thing grafted onto me as a reminder. Rumble seat. An optional secondary passenger seat that can be built into the controlled area of a BattleMech. Rumble seats are positioned away from all the control systems and ejection equipment. Those who ride in them have no control over the mech itself and are utterly at the mercy of the mech warrior in the cockpit. Ooh, that sounds like fun, riding in the rumble seat. And yet, here I am, doing mercenary work for a living. Some people never learn, huh? Why'd you leave the Capellan Confederation? I mean, sounds like a nice place. Authoritarian, militaristic. After my tour of duty was up, you mean? I don't know, it was just time for a change. Besides, the place wasn't for me anymore. In a way, it never really was. I learned a lot from my time in the service. Got a first-hand view of the elitist bullshit that saturates Capellan culture. How it rewards high-born idiots at the common people's expense. Speaking as a thoroughly common man, that didn't sit right with me. When my tour was over, I walked away and never looked back. You'll never really get away from the aristocracy, Yang. Hell, I was born a noble. Yeah, but you're a competent noble, and you aren't afraid to get your hands dirty. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. I wonder how many times I watch talented engineers get passed over for promotion so some idiot with a title could advance. Too many to count. For what it's worth, I'm glad that you walked away. You've brought my mech back from the brink more than once. Heh. Way more than once, if memory serves. Still, I appreciate the kind words, and for what it's worth, I'm happy to be here with this crew. Going career military would have been an enormous mistake. In your position, I probably would have done the same. Let's talk about something else. So, I think we've, like, talked everything over with him. Let's talk about something else. Nothing left here. Yeah, I gotta get back to it. Talk to you later, Yang.
I'll be here if you need.
Man, I talked half an hour with that guy. Alright then. What do we still have? We have, like, Captain's Quarter we can do really quick, so, like, yeah, we have the customization options over here. We have this, which gives us our financial status. We have, like, 3 months to go until we bankrupt. That's not beautiful. I don't like that. We can see that we have upkeeps on the mechs, which is actually one of the reasons why I want to kick out the Locust. They're all just taking 12,000, so yeah. And then we have salaries. We're actually paying like 110k in salaries. We can't do without these guys. I really want at least one spare, but I'm definitely not gonna. I'm gonna try to not take on more pilots, because I think we'll never be able to field more than 4 people that one lands. I might be wrong though. I might be wrong. Ship status is no... Oh, yeah, that's the expense level. We can spend more to get higher morale. That's that. And then we still have the reputation. So Mercenary Review Board, yeah, 15. Alright, then that will affect how what kind of pilots we can hire. And then we have faction standings with the Draconis, the Lyrans, the Taurians, the Free Worlds League, Federated Sons, Capellan Confederation, and the Magistracy of Canopus. These are like the guys. So I think Federated Sons, Draconis, Lyrans, Capellans, and I think these are inners. These are inner sphere guys. Not sure if the Taurian Concordat is as well. I love the heraldry on these guys though. Really nice. I was kind of tempted to go for Federated Sons just because their logo is really cool. But oh well. Navigation. Okay, so we have Samir over here.
How can I help, Commander?
Does the decision we made about uncertified contracts satisfy your concerns? My concerns won't be satisfied until our creditors have been paid and the loan sharks are off our backs. But this is a step in the right direction and that makes me happy. I'm not blind to the risks that uncertified contracts entail, by the way. I mean, I know what we're doing is dangerous, but it's the best chance we've got to dig ourselves out of this hole. Okay, got some questions about navigation. Sure, ask away. I mean, it's kind of important that you understand what you're doing, so if I can help with that, I'm all for it. Okay, Navigator, how do we get from system to system? The short answer is that you pick a destination on the star map and I make it happen. Interstellar travel takes time, sometimes weeks, and it costs us sea bills for fuel and passage on a jump ship. But it's the only way for an outfit like ours to survive out there. We go where the work is. What intel can I get about a system before choosing to go there? Enough to make a reasonably informed choice, I think. The star map makes political boundaries clear, so you'll know whose space we're entering. I've reprogrammed the star map to lock out travel to systems designated as no-fly zones. We're looking for work, not an interstellar incident. Beyond political boundaries, the nav system will highlight political factions active in the system. That should give you a good idea of who's hiring. It's probably a good idea to check our reputation with the local factions before ordering a long voyage. Yeah, this also has influences what we can buy from stores. The better our reputation, I think, the better the prices. And it might even influence what kind of stuff they're offering to us, but I'm not sure. Okay, that's got to be more intel than just local politics. There is. As you select systems on the star map, you see a list of the attributes the MERCnet database associates with them. Attributes like black market or poor are clues to local store contents, the type of mercs we'll find in hiring halls, contracts we may be offered in potential mission environments. If you hover over an attribute, the star map will display a longer description for you. Okay, cool. But beyond the political factions and attributes of a system, perhaps the most important to watch for is the difficulty rating of the merc contracts we find here. The MRB maintains a standardized rating system, so folks like us who are trolling MERCnet for jobs can... Trolling? I think that should be trawling. MERCnet for jobs can weigh the risks before accepting a contract. Okay, I want to ask about something else. What else can you tell me about the mechanics of space travel? I want to know it all. Well, the long answer is that there's two types of space travel. Travel by dropships like ours, and travel by jump ships. Dropships travel under 1G of thrust to move from a planet's orbit to a jump point. Jump points are far outside the gravity well of the stars, and so travel to and from a jump point takes most of our travel time, sometimes weeks. Jump ships, on the other hand, are like ferries. They just sit at a jump point waiting for folks like us to latch onto their docking collar. Then we wait there for about 5 days while they spin up their jump drive. Once the jump drive is spun up, popping a dozen light years across interstellar space to another jump point takes nearly no time at all. I've heard stories about pirate points that a jump ship can use. What are those? They're bad news, Commander. Difficult to locate and dangerous to use. I've heard of people using pirate points in desperate situations or on covert missions, but it's not worth the risk of a misjump. You won't find any pirate points on my star map, I can tell you that. Let's just avoid them. She's not telling me about it. Come on. If I'm her commander, she's gonna tell me what, she's gonna answer questions. But oh well, I guess that's just her personality. She'll just tell me what she thinks I need to know. Alright then. Have it your way. Insubordination is your thing. Do we always have to pay for our way from system to system? Not always, no. If you check the contracts list in the command center, you'll often find employers posting travel contracts. Travel contracts are how employers attract mercenaries to their system by paying the outfit's travel expenses. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not take the travel contract and then skip out on their mission for a more lucrative contract when we arrive? You can't do that, Horath, but You can do that, but will automatically get charged the cost of the jump. You know that old saying, there's no such thing as a free ride? Yeah, unfortunately, it's still true. I like that. They're just like thinking like the player and telling the player, yeah, you might want to exploit this, but you really can't. Okay, the star map confuses me sometimes. Why does it take longer to get to one place than another when the systems appear to be the same distance apart? Yeah, that bothered me too before I joined the academy. Turns out that in real life, space travel isn't like what you see in the adventure holovids that Darius makes us watch. For starters, some stars are more massive than others. In the case of a really big star, you have to range pretty far afield to find a location suitable for a KF jump. That is the drive that they're using. Kane Fushida drive, something like that. And for us, that means a whole lot of molasses slow sublight travel where we can't even dock with a jump ship, let alone ride it anywhere. Before we can even dock with a jump ship. Okay. So we basically have inner system travel that is super slow on sublight, and then... Okay, let's go on. Jump ship charging times are the other half of the travel time equation. A jump ship's KF drive will take a few days to recharge after each jump. So if your destination is a few jumps away, well, you get there. You get where I'm going with this. And that's the long and the short of it. Anytime we want to go from one system to another, we're talking about weeks of sublight travel coupled with a healthy dose of hurry up and wait. Exactly how much determines how long the trip is going to take. I love that kind of travel system. I'm super happy that that is how that works. It's one of the things that I like about the BattleTech universe already. What can I do while we're orbiting in system? Beyond negotiating a contract, most inhabited systems maintain a hiring hall where you can recruit new MechWarriors. Be sure to take a look. You never know what kind of talent you're going to find. Most systems also have merchants who can buy and sell hardware such as weapons, equipment, and mech parts. Sometimes even fully operational BattleMechs too. Our reputation with the local faction will influence costs when purchasing equipment and hiring MechWarriors. The better our rep, the better the deal we get. And the better the MechWarriors who will be willing to sign on to us. Okay, that's all for now, thanks. Collecting stories about the crew. Tell me something about yourself. Well, I'm from a noble family like you. We're old money, made our fortune out in Hague, then repatriated to the Taurian Concordat. That's where I grew up. I'm not sure if this is the kind of stuff you were hoping to hear, but we can talk about whatever. I'm not shy. Yeah, I didn't think so. A minor interstellar state conquered 700 years ago by the Draconis Combine. Now officially known as the Hague Military District. Oh yeah, that sounds promising. Taurian Concordat. The Taurian Concordat is one of the largest periphery states. Okay, so these guys are periphery. I was just wondering about that a couple of minutes ago. Located rimward of Terra beyond the Federated Suns. Founded and ruled by House Calderon, the Concordat prides itself on its independence, freedom, and stability. The Concordat is wealthy, well-educated, and well-armed for a periphery state. The Taurians defend their independence fiercely against inner sphere aggression, particularly by the Federated Suns. They perceive House Davian's reputation as a protector of liberties as unwarranted and even hypocritical, and they have a long history of conflict with the much larger successor state. The current ruler of the Concordat is Protector Thomas Calderon. Okay, interesting. Where in the Concordat are you from? I grew up on New Vandenberg. It is a nice enough place, I suppose. Do you like birds? Not particularly. Then do yourself a favor and avoid New Vandenberg. Avoid it like the plague. Something like 2/3 of the native fauna has feathers, flutters on the wind, and splatters its excrement across every available surface. That is a nice enough place for you? Yeah, sure. Naturally, the original colonists adopted the feathery little monsters into the culture, and those of us that came after were kinda stuck with it. Statues, fountains, murals, you name it. Just a giant feathery pile of screeching alien birds. If the system had a motto, it'd be squawk. I get the picture. You sure? Because I could keep going. I hate birds, is what I'm saying. That may be an unpopular opinion for a pilot, but I'll stand by it until the day I die. Yeah, I can kind of see where she's coming from. When did you learn to pilot a Leopard anyway? The Taurian Naval Institute on New Vandenberg. Well, among other places. It's a big campus. The low-gravity training stations orbiting Lompoc was my second home for a time. T&I flight training isn't usually open to civilians, but my parents had good credit back then, and they could name drop Protector Calderon. That'll get you pretty far in the Concordat for a while anyway. So he's the leader of that. Born 2984, so he's about he's in his 50s. Just about not 50, I think. Thomas Calderon succeeded his mother, Cerantha Calderon, as protector of the Taurian Concordat in 3017. House Calderon leaders are known for their pragmatism and sound judgment. Thomas is no exception. The other cadets in my class weren't especially happy sharing air with a civvy, but they couldn't say much. I was nobility and they weren't. Everyone sort of kept me at arm's length, so I had plenty of time to concentrate on my studies. I guess that's how she became who she is. Like, she's not even telling her commander enough. Or not even answering my questions. I got my certification in both dropship and jumpship operation in 4 years. I even tried working on a commercial jump crew for a while once upon a time. The people were fun, but it wasn't for me. The ratio of flying to violent jump sickness skewed hard in the wrong direction. What can you tell me about House Meyer? You're looking at it. My parents are both gone. Blood cancer and heart disease, respectively. Both treatable, but they were out of money at that point, so into the ground they went. Ditto my brother David, who ran off to serve in the Third Succession War and never came back. Third Succession War began in 2866 when coordinator Miyogi Kurita responded aggressively to rumors of the Draconis Combine's weakness. But the fighting spread to the entire inner sphere. Because the successor state's military capabilities had been dramatically reduced in the previous 2 succession wars, this conflict proceeded at a slower pace and with less intensity than the earlier wars. Treaty signed in 3020 and 3022 limited the fighting, and by 3025 the Third Succession War has effectively ended. I'm a stranger to loss myself. Yeah, I'm sure you're not. Nobody is really. It's a rough galaxy. David was 13 years old and older than me, and had a foot out the door before I turned 3. My parents, well, they raised me by proxy in the traditional noble fashion. There was no real bond there, even when I was young. None of this is to say that my folks were bad people. They weren't. They were just doing what they knew. Their upbringings had been outsourced, just like mine was. Anyway, that's all I got to say about my family. They're gone. I'm here, the end. So, you got another question? Should we get back to our duties? I still kind of like you. Your family came from Razelhague. It was a long time ago, yeah. But yeah, as my parents told it, we were landowners on Pomme de Terre. Pomme de Terre? That's like, spuds? Yeah, I think so. Potato. It's an agricultural world, sort of the breadbasket of the Draconis Combine. And yes, I know that Pomme de Terre means potato. Oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, silly me. My ancestors came from the planet Potato. It took some time for me to accept that, but hey, here we are. Draconis Combine. The Draconis Combine is one of the 5 successor states of the Star League, located Corewood in Spinwood of Terra. Ruled by House Kurita, the Combine has always been aggressively expansionist. The head of the Combine was the first of the Council Lords to declare himself the new ruler of the collapsing Star League, regularly in conflicts along its borders with all its neighbors. The Combine is a highly structured militaristic society with rulership in the hands of the Coordinator, the Commander-in-Chief of the Draconis military. The Combine's culture is heavily influenced by the Japanese roots of the ruling family, despite the minority status of those with Japanese ancestry, as this cultural heritage is imposed from above by the predominantly Japanese ruling class. The current leader of the Combine is Coordinator Takashi Kurita. Alright then, that is interesting. Anyway, moving on. House Meyer's holdings were meager, but the value of that land was astronomical. For minor nobility, we were really very wealthy. And then the Third Succession War broke out and the political rhetoric got ugly. House Meyer didn't want a single part of what was happening, so my ancestors emptied their accounts and ran. As a rule, House Kurita takes a really dim view of nobles who cut and run. Words like traitor and defector start getting thrown around. In the Combine, you really don't want to be on the receiving end of allegations like that. I wouldn't be standing here today if House Calderon hadn't guaranteed my ancestors asylum in the Concordat. In all likelihood, House Meyer would have been wiped out before I was even born. Oh man, that is rough. House Kurita? Honor the dragon! Of course. What else? House Kurita has dominated the Draconis Combine since its founding in 2319 by Shiro Kurita, who imbued the state with its strong Japanese culture, personal honor and a self-reliance bordering on xenophobia are hallmarks of Korean policy, embracing the way of the warrior. The Draconics Combine has had a long history of antagonism with and aggression against its neighbors. These sound like difficult to handle. Space Japan, but with a very aggressive streak. I wouldn't be standing here. Yeah, how's Calderon? Is the dynastic ruling house of Taurus, the Taurian homeworlds, and the Taurian Concordat. The line is descended from Samantha Calderon, who founded the first colony on Taurus in 2253. Members of House Calderon are considered fair, egalitarian, and pragmatic in their decisions. Yeah, probably takes someone like that to pull them out. Be my guest. What you need? I'm gonna get back to it. Talk to you later, Samir.
I'll be here if you need me.
Let's go ahead and talk with Darius. I think that's the last one, and that's kind of all that we need to do. So, hey Darius, how's it going?
I have answers.
Always good to see you at Alps, Horath. Can I do something for you? I want to know more about our debt situation. Yeah, sure, that's fair. I'm glad you're taking an interest. I've got time to get into the nuts and bolts of it if you do. So he's my XO, my executive officer, my second in command. What did you want to know? Remind me why we took out so many loans in the first place. I'm glad that I can ask that question, because that is something that I asked myself right when I heard that these guys are super in debt. How much time have you got? I mean, we've been hit with 1,000 expenses since we were forced to flee Coromodir. But I guess you're mostly interested in the big ticket items. Well, first and foremost, there's the Leopard. We still owe a lot of money on this ship, and losing her isn't an option. Then, you've got all the assorted fallout from our impromptu trip across the frontier. Jump ship passage, docking fees, miscellaneous travel expenses, all paid for on credit, as if we had a choice. There's more that I could get into. The loan we took out to set up Markham's family, that is like the former commander of the outfit, etc., etc. But that'd be gilding the lily at this point. Okay, it's superfluous. The fact is, we're in a lot of trouble with a lot of lenders. But hey, we're mercenaries. We live for trouble. Who are we in debt to exactly? I want names. How about I give you the top 3? First, you've got Blue Horizon. That's the big commercial bank on Lyriton. A system in the Oregon frontier. Lyriton was formerly a Capellan garrison world, lost after the Second Succession War. The population of Lyriton is spread across 3 tropical moons of the system's large gas giant. Each moon is independent, and civil conflict between the moons makes the system a tense and dangerous place. Really? That doesn't really seem like a good place for a bank. Well, they're the ones that own the lease on this ship. Then there's the Indri Consortium. They've got people everywhere, but they're based somewhere in Merrick space. We borrowed from one of their associates to make the jump away from Coromodir on the day of the coup. Merrick, we stand united. The Free Worlds League, the oldest of all successor states, has long been ruled by House Merrick. The League is an open, multicultural state consisting of many great and small realms loosely joined together, politically fragile and frequently riven with instability. House Merrick has relied heavily on free trade and technological advancement to keep peace with its rivals. Okay. Finally, you got Lock-On Lending. They're a frontier outfit from Hastur, and they're about as crooked as they come. Now, I wouldn't normally do business with an outfit like the Double L, but we didn't have a choice. They made a deal with Blue Horizon to buy half of our debt. So that's the big 3, a commercial bank, a shadowy financial consortium, and a bunch of leg breakers in cheap suits. And each of them is dangerous in its own way. Oh man. That's enough money talk for now. Let me ask up something else. I got some questions about running this company. Sure thing, I'd be happy to help. What do you want to know? Remind me what I need to know about mercenary contracts. Outfits like ours depend on the Mercenary Review Board to post certified contracts working for reliable employers. I say reliable, but let's face it, Horath, most jobs come down to us doing the work that the rich and powerful can't be seen doing. Mercenaries are deniable assets. Like the Ronin in Japanese world. We travel from system to system, picking up jobs and making ends meet. Sure, space travel costs sea bills. But some employers are desperate enough to pay travel expenses for mercenaries willing to make a few jumps for a gig. What intel will I get about a contract before I accept it? Most employers will give us enough info to understand who we're fighting and why. Some are cagier than others, but by and large they want us to succeed. Because of this, we generally get enough intel to get the job done. It isn't a perfect system, but it works well enough. There are a few key things to look in for a contract. First, you need to understand what type of mission it is. Next, you should take account of the climate conditions in the area of operation. Finally, it's important to know the expected strength of the opposing force, or OPFOR. Vital even. Tell me about the types of missions we may be offered. Man, my throat is acting up a bit. Trying to drink tea to keep it cool, but yeah. I'll get through this though. In my experience, most contracts come down to one or more of a few basic ideas. Blowing something up, taking someone down, keeping something safe, or making a mess with heavy ordnance. There'll be variations here and there, sure, but for the most part our jobs are gonna fit into one of those categories. Giant bipedal weapon platforms aren't exactly known for their subtlety. Tell me about climate conditions. If you're not watching the climate conditions, you're not in full command of the battlefield. In most environments, you gotta watch your MechWarriors weapons fire and jump jet use so they don't overheat their BattleMechs. Badlands and deserts make your mechs run hotter, so you're gonna want to pay careful attention when you're fighting there. Low atmosphere, non-terraform planets are worse. You'd be wise to swap out some energy weapons for ballistic weapons in those environments or pack on some extra heat sinks. But the vacuum of lunar environments is the worst. It's counterintuitive, I know. Space is cold, right? But no atmosphere means basically no heat dispersion, and you're sitting on top of a fusion reactor. Use your jump jet sparingly, or you'll be shut down in no time. Yeah, that is something that I encountered in Elite Dangerous as well, where you can overheat your ship really quickly, and then your ship goes, your internal structure goes down and stuff. It's the same here. All that being said, frozen environments are like heaven for our MechWarriors. The heat from weapons fire and jump jets dissipates at a much greater rate, and you'll have the maximum options on the battlefield. But so does the enemy, so I don't know that that is really an incredible thing for us. Well, tell me about the mission difficulty. It's important to have an idea of what you'll be up against once your lance hits the ground. Unfortunately, mercenaries are often on the ass end of mission intel, and the most we'll usually get is a rating of the enemy's overall strength. At best, a mission's difficulty rating will give us an idea of our post-mission repair builds and medbay time, or a signal that we should avoid the mission altogether until we can bring bigger guns. As a general rule, we should field the heaviest mechs we can on a given mission. Bigger isn't always better though. Speed and mobility are important on escort and other missions where flexibility is as valuable as firepower. That still means like bringing medium mechs, I think. I don't really see myself fielding light mechs if I can avoid it once I have some heavier mechs. I'll try and give you a heads up when we're offered missions like that. Oh, that's kind of him. Thanks. Can I withdraw from a contract? Absolutely. That's the great thing about being a merc. It isn't our fight. We're here to make money, not die for a cause. You can back out of a contract negotiation at any time with no harm done, but once we deploy onto a battlefield it gets a little trickier. If things start going sideways during a mission, you can still withdraw to save on repair bills and medbay time, but it may still cost us. If we withdraw before achieving any objectives and destroying at least one enemy, the Mercenary Review Board will rule it a bad faith withdrawal. Not only will we not get paid, we won't get any battlefield salvage either. Plus, our reputation will suffer, both with our employer and with the MRB. Now if we withdraw after achieving an objective and destroying at least one enemy, then the board rule will rule it a good faith withdrawal. Our pay will still be reduced, but our reputation won't take a hit, and that's important for business. Got it. One last thing on this subject. If one of your mechs is getting banged up bad and it looks like a mech warrior may not make it out alive, you can order them to eject during combat. Samir will fly suborbital and recover them, and will scoop up their mech after the mission. Okay, tell me about reputation. Our mercenary outfit's reputation determines the quality of the contracts we're offered, and the quality of the mech warriors willing to hire on with us, and the deals we get on weapons, mechs, and equipment in local stores. Most employers won't offer us the really juicy contracts until we've proven ourselves over time, but once our rep is solid, we'll get access to some high-paying gigs with opportunities for some serious battlefield salvage. Why is salvage so important then? If sea bills are like blood, salvage is like food for a mercenary company. Or something like that. I don't really do analogies. Let's just leave it at salvage is good. Here's why. Salvage lets you replace components you've lost or upgrade your mechs to better suit your combat tactics. And if you don't end up needing the salvage you get, you can always sell it off at the nearest store. Salvage rights are a time-honored tradition in the mercenary trade, and figuring out who gets what at the end of an engagement is a vital part of our business. In addition to sea bills, most contracts will offer salvage, reflected as a ratio like 2/10. The first number represents how many priority salvage items we get to handpick after a battle. The second number is the total amount of salvage we'll get, subject to the whims of our employer. You can negotiate salvage rights for every mission you accept, so keep it in mind. How do I negotiate a contract? Mercenary contract negotiation is pretty straightforward out here in the periphery. It's all based on the golden triangle. Sea-bills, salvage, and reputation. Sea-bills are the coin of the realm, so to speak. We use sea-bills to pay for travel expenses, upkeep on our ship, salaries for our crew, and repairs or refits for our mechs. Sea-bills keep us flying. Salvage is part of our take too. The more salvage we take off the battlefield, the fewer sea-bills are deposited into our account. The fewer sea-bills we ask for, the more salvage we can get. Now you may want to take less money and less salvage in order to increase our reputation with the party offering the contract. Yeah, it'll cost us now, but the investment could really pay off later down the road. Okay, I'd like to ask something. So tell me about how our outfit's finances work. It's pretty simple, really. Every 30 days, we have to pay the crew and cover our regular operating expenses, upkeep for the mechs we have ready in our mech base, upgrades to our equipment, things like that. So if we don't have enough sea-bills to cover our operating costs at the end of the month, then our financial report comes due, we're out of business. Merc life doesn't allow for second chances. Remember that when you're ordering weapon refits and ship upgrades, and make sure to reserve enough to cover our monthly nut. I'm sure that this is obvious, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How can I raise the operating costs of our company? Yeah. Raising? Alright then. Obviously, the more MechWarriors we hire, the more we gotta pay out each month. Nevertheless, it's a good idea to have a strong bench. You never know when someone's gonna take one in the meat and be out of action for a while. Any upgrades we make to the ship will have upkeep costs too. Yeah, there are advantages, but there are advantages that require ongoing maintenance and that cost sea-bills. How can I lower our operating costs? Well, for starters, consider putting the mechs you don't plan to field for a while into storage. Although it'll require time and sea-bills to refit their equipment and ready them for combat, stored mechs have no upkeep costs. By the way, remember that you can sell mechs, chassis, and equipment if we're ever low on cash, or you see something shiny in the store that you've just gotta have. Anyway, back to operating costs. You can always dismiss a mech warrior if you're having a hard time making payroll. And every month you get to decide how generous to be with their pay. Careful though, a mercenary salary has a direct effect on their morale. Okay, something else? Let's talk about my mech warriors. Sure, what do you want to know? How much do I need to worry about their morale? Mercenaries aren't like members of the Royal Guard Horath. They're in it for the paycheck, not for loyalty to some noble house. Because of this, keeping their spirits up is important. Mech warriors with high morale get inspired more from the battlefield. Their heads are in the game. And inspired mech warriors can create opportunities. I've seen inspired mech warriors make precision strikes I thought were impossible, focusing their fire at one location on a speeding enemy as if it were standing still on a shooting range 25 yards away while wearing a sign that said "Shoot me" in neon green. Inspired mech warriors show amazing vigilance too. They seem to have an uncanny ability to blunt incoming damage and have heightened reflexes, so they act fast on the battlefield. Amazing stuff. On the other hand, I've seen mercs with low morale up and leave an outfit like ours without warning. Sometimes you see it coming, sometimes you won't. So yeah, you need to worry about their morale, Horath. You're the boss. What sort of control do I have over their training? MechWarriors gain experience on every mission they complete. You can chart their training, guide their development in full skills, gunnery, piloting, guts, and tactics. As they become strong in a particular skill, your MechWarriors gain access to special abilities that can be used in combat. First ability is the MechWarrior specialization. MechWarriors can have only 2 specializations total, so pay attention when you're training them. The first 2 they acquire are the only 2 they'll have. Second ability is the MechWarrior's expertise. MechWarriors get only 1 of those, and it has to be from one of their specializations. Whichever expertise they learn first is the only one they'll have. So 3 abilities total per mech warrior. That's a lot of possible combinations. You'll need to decide for yourself which abilities work best together according to your command style. Yeah, we're gonna play with that later on down the line. Lastly, nearly every skill increase also grants a minor boost to some facet of combat performance. Mech warriors can become more accurate with ranged or melee attacks. They can keep their mech stable longer under sustained fire, or even take more injuries before being incapacitated. Hell, they can even get better at taking cold shots when the opportunity comes up. Okay, do more experienced mech warriors require higher salaries? Wouldn't you? As mech warriors grow in skill and abilities, their salaries will grow with them. Right, makes sense. Okay. So, is there any general info you'd like to share? Things happen on a mercenary ship, Horath, all the time. You throw a bunch of mech jockeys in a confined space with technicians and crew for months on end, you're gonna see some spillover from the battlefield. And operating a merc outfit isn't a glamorous lifestyle. These are hard choices to be made. There are hard choices to be made on a regular basis. Anything from breaking up a fight over petty bullshit to dealing with faulty power couplings. Still, I wouldn't trade this for just about anything. We go where we want, we fight who we want, and we have only one god we obey, the mighty Seabill. Well, and you, I guess. Yeah, it's the merc life for me, Horath, all the way to the end. At least all these guys like it. That's enough instruction for one day, Darius, thanks. Got a few minutes to chat, I'd like to catch up. Yeah, sure, I got time to talk. Before any of this started, you worked with the Iran Royal Guard. Tell me about it. That was more than just a deployment, it was a full campaign. High Lord Tamari gave us the job back in 19. We're supposed to be assisting the Royal Guard to round up and eliminate a pirate clan on Fjaldr. Fjaldr was originally a Capellan colony world, lost in the Succession Wars. It is a bleak ice planet swept constantly by howling winds and blowing snow. The original colony was largely underground, built in the sides of deep kilometer-wide shafts that breach the ice that envelops this world. Fjaldr survives on its rich mineral resources and its position as a well-connected hub world near the inner sphere. Okay, Commander Markham thought it'd be easy money. Turned out to be anything but. We lost a dozen MechWarriors in the 3 months of the Fjaldr campaign. Had to hose them out of their cockpits. Would have been more if it wasn't for Sir Raju. He saved our people's asses on more than one occasion. Went out of his way to do it. And the thing is, he didn't have to. We weren't under his protection. We were the hired help. A lot of people in Master's position would have used us as cannon fodder, but that wasn't his way. He treated us as if we were his own. It was a good man, Horath. As good as they come. Okay, the mercenary definitely remembers a good employer. Tell me a bit about yourself, Darius. Where are you from? I grew up on Nassau Heights. It's one of the HAB stations orbiting Artru. 30 decks of economic stratification, with the corporate suits on the upper decks, and everyone else crammed into the lower ones. My old man was a dockhand. We lived on deck 28, 2 levels up from the bottom, with the other station maintenance personnel. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, my dad would load and unload cargo shuttles. Vacuum-sealed Quilla and nutrient paste for people like us, and luxury foods for the suits upstairs. What's Quilla? A bioengineered crop that serves as the staple foodstuff on the inner sphere. Quilla looks like an ordinary grain, but grows to twice the size of Terran corn and can be textured and flavored to mimic a wide variety of fruits, grains, and vegetables. That doesn't sound very healthy. The old man must have unloaded 1,000 cases of Casildan eel roe, plump, succulent eggs the size of melon balls. Never got to taste any though. Any one of those tins would have cost him half a year's wages. An aquatic world farmed for its bountiful deadly oceans. Casilda's human population is clustered on volcanic island chains along the equator, while the oceans are ruled by the vast array of native predatory life forms. Casildan seafood is sold as a delicacy throughout the rimwood periphery. Oh man, so he's from the very bottom of society. Rough. Anyway, Horath, I don't want to sell you with my life story. Suffice it to say that I got an eyeful of what I didn't want to be on Nassau Heights. And I did what I had to do to change my circumstances. And by the age of 16, I struck out on my own. I left that station with a handful of skills, an enormous web of contacts, and a rucksack full of that expensive caviar. And once I made it off of Nassau Heights, I never ever looked back. Alright, like to talk about something else. So he stole a bunch of caviar? That's hilarious. Okay. Gotta run, Darius.
I'll see you.
I think that is like everything. MechWarriors, Space, Yang, Samir, Finances, Reputation. So I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pop back in here. I thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. If you really managed to watch until the end, write me something in the comments. Write me... What was the traitor dude? Stefan Aramis? Write me Stefan Aramis stinks. In the comments, so I know that you actually watch it to the end. Thank you very much for watching. I see you in the next episode where we're definitely gonna go on more missions. Like, we got that out of the way. I really wanted to do it though, because I I like the backstory that they present. Maybe a lot of people are new to this. I mean, the game isn't even out yet, so maybe you want to see all the tutorial stuff and see how things work. We'll get into the rest in over the next episodes, but I just feel better having done this and sort of having it in the Let's Play series so that it's actually incorporated. And yeah, with that, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.